Okay, one of my phone's dying right now, but it's fine. Hopefully it lasts. Okay, so I'm gonna read this out loud. Peace. I'm gonna talk about religion. Ideas I kind of mentioned in other videos, but mostly just, um, atheists, all that crap, Okay. Um, okay, so, and I really had to let it go to be able to accept and love myself, because everything I was taught was opposite. And then, so I get, like, really angry at God and everything. Oh, yeah. No, but my idea and everything was, for peace of, like, world peace and everything to happen. I was thinking that just, like, all religions just united for good. Just, like, because my whole idea and, like, the more I learned about other religions, I was like, oh, just take, like, the positive things that they teach and their lessons that are positive, and then encouraging me, like, oh, you should love your neighbors, just be nicer to people. Just try your best. Try and be a good person. Don't hurt other people. Um, like the golden rule of being like, oh, you should treat people how you want to be treated, that type of thing. Um, and like a little bit of their other lessons, and stuff like that. I was like, you just add all that together and just keep all the positive things about the religion, um, and make people just unite over that. But if the religions were going to actually unite, I made a whole. If they were actually going to unite, they're probably actually going to unite over hating people, and they're probably going to target all the gay and trans people and be like, yeah, now we're going to kill all of you because we're united in our hatred. Because usually how it works, people usually don't unite over good cause. They usually unite in hatred and wanting to kill people. So that sucks. Okay. But yeah. Oh, okay, I think I can conclude this. I'll talk about, for Jesus and everything. Because the whole idea of me, I just thought about and realized that if I take out the whole what I was taught and everything like that, and take out the whole idea of Jesus being like God's son and everything, and just be like, no, Jesus was a nice man, he was a prophet, he was religious, and he was just human. Focus that, then a lot of my anger is gone. Because I thought about things more, because I was like, oh, wait, if we, like, erase the Old Testament, just completely, just delete it, that's the real problem. Christianity and everything. Like, oh, we have different groups and everything, and, like, even some churches that are okay with, like, LGBT and stuff like that now. But it's still not there yet, and I don't think anyone's done it, and I haven't seen it. It's where they only use the, like, New Testament. And they, like, completely don't teach anything or talk about anything from the Old Testament. I just focus on Jesus' teaching. Because he was just like, oh, positive love. I'm going to take all the good things and all the good lessons and, like, all the good we should be doing in the world and apply that, and we're going to teach that and try and pass it down to other people. And I'm going to focus on that. And, yeah, I was like, he's trying to do autocorrect and everything because the whole Bible, and I always got this more thought about, I was like, religious people are complete hypocrites, and Christian people are complete hypocrites when they're like, oh, I love you, but, and whenever they're transphobic and homophobic, they're complete hypocrites. But they're like, oh, I'm not a hypocrite, because in the Bible it says that it's a sin and everything. But it also tells you to love everyone, to love your enemies, and all this crap. And then you have, like, and then even God is also, like, a hypocrite because he's like, oh, love everyone. Oh, well, I say I forgive you all and everything now, but now I'm going to send plagues, and now I'm going to kill you all, and I'm going to send floods because you did something I didn't like. And also, like, there's horrible things in the Bible. It's a bunch of just incest, especially since, like, I don't know how any of the Jews are alive, because, like, they're all just taught and everything. They're like, you can only, for the longest time, they're like, you can only marry other Jews. You can only marry other Jews. You're not allowed to marry any of the pagans. But, like, quite a few of them, like, they survived because they married the pagans and everything. They married people from other cultures and that believed different things, and they traveled to different locations, so they married people of different ethnicities and stuff like that. But then they would get yelled at, and they were told that that was bad, and they weren't supposed to do that because they were only supposed to marry other Jews. But there are only so many Jews, especially that you're traveling with to these different places. That you're trying to travel to escape from the plagues and everything like that. And they were like punished and killed and stuff like that. And then they also were punished and and they were stoned to death if they didn't do, what was the example? And then Jesus went on to correct that. So when they were like stoning a prostitute to death, he stopped it and he's like, hey, murder is wrong. But they're like, they're a sinner. It doesn't mean you're allowed to kill them. You're not allowed to commit a sin. And he's like, have you sinned? He pointed out, he's like, you've sinned. So there's no way you can't punish a sinner if you're not going to be punished. That's not fair. It's not equal. That's being a hypocrite. That's being a liar. You're not following teaching, and you're not being loving, and you're not being forgiving like you're supposed to be, and that we're supposed to be taught from the Bible. Instead, you just learned that what the sins were, and then attack people who do things that you don't want, and that was called the sin in the Bible at some point. And that they weren't allowed to eat certain meats and stuff like that. It's super strict rules. It was just all ridiculous. And then in the Bible in the New Testament, they're like, oh, now you can eat meat, because like you shouldn't have a balanced diet, and that it's food. You should not waste it. You should eat it. And they were also just selling, and they were sacrificing, wasting so many animals. I never got that. I was like, why are you sacrificing and burning your food as an offering to God, and when you could just feed more people and not have as many people homeless and starving and dying? Yeah, that doesn't make sense. They're like, it's to prevent the floods, prevent the plague. Yeah. Whatever. But yeah, as like a person, he's like a good person, solid guy, and he was just trying to reinforce and correct like the church's teaching and stuff like that. He's like, no, and a lot of the religious leaders and stuff like that would be like, they were tax collectors and stuff like that, and they were charging people to enter temples and stuff like that. And he's like, no, this is wrong. You're scamming people. You're taking advantage of people. Just let them. A lot of these people are poor. They can't afford this. Why are you taking their life savings? They need to survive. They need this cow. Why are you making them sacrifice these animals? They have mouths to feed. They need to be able to feed themselves. They can't sacrifice this. They can't afford it. They need food. Yeah. So he tried to like correct all the mistakes and just cut out all the bad stuff and just focus on all the good stuff. Like what I'm trying to do, if I take anything away from religion, I'm trying to only take away a few positive things I learned, and only focus on that, and just get rid of all the bad stuff and all the negative stuff and all the flaws, and all the lies and all the times where it's like, oh, in this case I forgive you and I bless you and I treat you nicely, but the next time I punish you and I kill you all because you did something I didn't like. And it just wasn't good, you know? And then also, like, he wasn't racist. And he doesn't just, like, practice being like, oh, friends with your enemies and stuff like that. And, like, I'm not gonna... And he was more of not just, like, oh, love your enemies. He was like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna actually make friends with people who have different beliefs and who are different races and different ethnicities. And then you learn, you're like, oh, he wasn't homophobic. And, like, he was okay with people dressing the way they wanted. And he was just, yeah. And then I was also, like, the whole, like, sleeping with the same sex or same sex, being with the same sex, is a sin. The whole same sex or, like, the whole gay translation, for the most part, and you're like, oh, in Salem, but I was like, that was rape. And they said rape was wrong and not okay. And it was just described as the city of sin and all that crap. So that was completely different. But then they were like, it's a sin and everything. But then I learned that, like a lot of things, the translation was messed up. Because it had to go to Latin to, like, Greek or whatever. And then that had to get translated to English. And then that had to get passed down. And then they had it translated to English. And then Old English. And then Old English to Normal English. So, and then they probably didn't translate it right when they're in the ancient old language. So, it's not even correct, you know? But yeah, I was like, but none of that's even in the New Testament. At least I don't think it is. And at least a lot less of it is. And like he was more positive, and he was just trying to be like, hey, you know what, we could be more loving and caring, and we could just be nicer to people. But then they all chose to just kill him and everything, because they're like, we don't like this, and they chose the killer over him to save and everything. And then the killer was like, hey, he shouldn't be executed, like, I deserve to be punished. Especially since you're like, he was nice and caring and loving and showed me, like, the love that I was missing in my life to me, being like, hey, people can be nice to you even if you do bad things and you have sin. They don't have to treat you like shit. They can still treat you like a human being and stuff like this. And he was just really nice to me. And so he's like, yeah, he doesn't deserve to die and everything. He didn't do anything wrong. And he's like, I still deserve to be punished and stuff like that. He's like, I killed a lot of people. I'm a serial killer, you know. I deserve to be punished. I get it. But they picked him because then they looked at Jesus and they heard him talk. They realized and they noticed, hey, oh, I could actually change and I could actually be a better person. But I don't want to, and I see my flaws, and I could see change and becoming a better person, and that I can see my flaws and that I've sinned and I'm not the greatest person, and I'm not as good as I thought I was. But if I compare myself to Jesus, then I realize, hey, I'm not that good of a person. I feel bad about myself. But if I compare myself to the criminal, then I feel amazing about myself, and I'm the top of the world and the best person ever. Because at least I didn't kill people, or at least I didn't get caught for it, you know. At least no one noticed. At least it was encouraged by society because the people I killed had all sinned. And we did it as a group. That type of thing. And then, like, he also helped people who were, like, poor on the road and, like, who were blind and who were starving and stuff like that. And he helped, like, fishermen fish, and he was just helping people. And then I was like, the whole after the dead thing, it was more of them just repeating, like, God's message, and more of just repeating some of the stuff from the old Bible, the Old Testament, teaching a little bit of that. And there wasn't really that much. Nothing really happened after he was resurrected. He, like, disappeared right after, so it kind of seems like, for the most part, it was just made up. And they were just trying to continue and keep up the religion. And they're trying to just reinforce and keep a hold of his teaching and promote more believers and make a bigger group and everything like that. But yeah, no, but because I was really mad, and then I was like, wait, if I think of it just a person, I'm wrong, and he was doing my idea before I had it of just taking the positive things and focusing on that. Just focusing on love and being kind and trying to be nice to people and helping people. And just being like, hey, I can work on myself. I can help people more. I can work on myself. I can be a little bit nicer. I can be a little bit better. I can be a little bit more accepting. I can learn a bit more. I can try a little bit harder. I can become a little bit better. Yeah. So, yeah. No, so as a person, he's amazing. He's a good role model. But I was like, and then they're like, oh, and then the whole, if the apocalypse and if Jesus and God was, like, real and all that crap, and mostly if he was homophobic and transphobic, like my parents said, but I was like, if he was real and he was human, and if he was, like, in the Bible, in the New Testament, then he wasn't homophobic and he wouldn't be transphobic, and he'd actually be, like, an ally and supportive, and he'd be nice. And he was also, like, nice to widows, and he treated women nicely, and he treated women prostitutes. He saved them from being stoned to death. And he's nice to widows and stuff like that. He was a lot nicer to everyone. He was just a good person, you know? yeah. No, but like if he was like how I was taught and everything, where he was like really God's son and everything, I'm like, but and he came back from the dead, so you know, and he came back to Earth like in the what is it? My phone may not be dead. What is it? And the apocalypse and the end of times, and the not the revival. I read a whole series of the rapture. There was a whole story series I read about the rapture, about kids being like, "Oh, the rapture is real" and stuff like that, and like God's real. So then they become Christians after the rapture happens, and then they travel around and trying to survive the apocalypse, the end of times. No, yeah, but no. I was thinking it's like the rapture was real, and so Jesus came back to Earth and everything. I would like my plan was to get revenge for all the pain and suffering caused, because you're like, oh, but the whole deal was on the cross and everything. He's like, I took on all your sins and all your suffering, and I know. And he was always also being like, oh, God knows, and he's experienced all your pain and suffering and all of that crap. And I was like, I don't believe any of that. You no way in hell you felt my pain. I'll make you feel my pain. I will torture you. And then I was like, oh, I could just like torture them and kill them over and over again because they're immortal. And they're a lot weaker because they're human. Because that's how they would have to be on Earth and everything. And they were human when they were alive. So they would be human when they came back. But it would God just wouldn't let them die. Until his mission and everything was complete on Earth. And the only way for like, and I wouldn't believe like if Jesus came back, and like they're also talking about how he wouldn't be able to get into the country of air support security and stuff like that. But if like I ever came across him and he'd like be like, I'm Jesus and all this crap and I'm God's son, and the whole deal of the whole Trinity thing, so he's the Spirit and he's God and he's the Son of God. He's the Son of God and God, so he's his father's sins and his own. Because they're like, for the most part, he didn't have any sins, but I believe God sinned. So, and he's claiming that he's also his father. So, you'll be punished for your father's sin, but you're like, oh, that's not fair to him because he's not God. He's not his father, but he claims that he is. And the only way to prove that he was like, I wouldn't believe like if he's Jesus or whatever. And I'd only believe it if like he died and he came back. And then I'd be like, you're not human, you're not real, and you're immortal, so I can just torture and kill you over and over again. So you can experience some of the pain and the suffering that I've experienced, and that humanity has experienced, and that other people have experienced. And that you claim that you understand that you've experienced, but you clearly haven't. Yeah. That was my whole deal. I got really angry with the whole rapture deal. And I was like, if he's the horrible person that I was taught, and that he just made the flood, and that he just turned people to salt, and that he just murdered people because his love is, he preaches and says, unconditional love. Oh, I love you and I forgive you, but I still send you to hell, and I still punish you, and I still light you on fire, and I still flood you, and I still kill you, and I still make you have diseases and plagues and mental illnesses and disabilities, and you still have rape, and you still have murder, and all these issues, then you clearly, and I kill you, and I make you have plagues, and I take away all your food, I make you starve to death, I take away the rain, so you have droughts, and I just kill you all off, and I make it hotter, and all this stuff. And I change the environment, and I put different animals, and I make animals bigger and everything, and I make it so they want to hunt and kill you. Because you said something and you did something I didn't like. Yeah, so that whole deal was BS. It was a nice idea. It was a whole nice idea, and then I also had to really let it go, because I was like, so I can love myself. I can't believe in God and crap, because his love is conditional, because my identity conflicts with what he wants and his love. And if I identify as not cis and straight, he no longer loves me, and he hates me, and he's going to send me to hell and burn me for all eternity. and my suffering will never end, and I'll just have to suffer for all of eternity, just because I'm trying to be happy, and I'm trying to love myself, but apparently that's wrong, you know, so, it's just a wreck. Yeah, okay, so that should be about everything. Yeah, I know, but, to really accept and, like, to really accept myself and come to terms with my identity, I had to completely let go of religion. And I realized the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, that was just a tool to use to control me and guilt me and to be like, oh, no, there's like discipline and there's punishments in the Bible, so it can't be abuse. It can't, we're not doing anything wrong. It was an explanation for all their actions and all their behaviors, and that you're always sinning, and that you're always deserving to go to hell, and that you always deserve punishment, and that you're always wrong, and that you're always a horrible person. And the whole deal of you're born with sin, and that you have bad things happen to you because God's punishing you, because you're born a sinner, and you're being punished for your ancestors' sins and all of this. So, yeah, and then I was like, hey, there's no way it was a coincidence that the same year I accepted Jesus into my heart at 5, it's the same year I tried to kill myself. Yeah, that's no coincidence. And all my time, I would spend angry and resenting and just praying to God, screaming and begging Him to kill me because I just wanted the pain to stop. All I've ever wanted, I wanted the pain to stop. And a little bit of fear kept me going because He said that He loved me, but He was going to send me to hell. So it just didn't make any sense ever. The whole religion thing didn't make sense. I was like, why, if you say that you love me, why do you hate me and you punish me and you send me to hell to suffer and pain for all of eternity? Why you don't hurt people you love. But yeah, but I grew up and everyone who claimed to love me hurt me, so I was taught that. And then I was also taught that respect was fear, and that you fear God, it's respect, and you fear your parents, so it's respect. Fear is respect. So you have to fear everyone. But yeah, it was just a wreck. And they could never be wrong, and that they were angels, and that they were perfect, and that they never sinned, and they had no flaws. Oh, crap. And then also, like, whole religion deal, I was like, religion is just an excuse to fight people and kill people, and people just are really just wanting to fight for control and power and money and land. But then they just use religion as an excuse to kill each other, and they had the whole